M123 is a lightly traveled stretch of road that runs between Moran and Whitefish Point in Michigan's Upper Peninsula. Passing through the towns of Trout Lake, Eckerman, and Paradise, the highway exposes the motorist to a wide range of remote, rugged, and strikingly beautiful landscapes. It was just the kind of place C.J. Tasker loved. Born in Detroit, Tasker was a student at Northern Michigan University in the early 1960s. On weekends, his favorite pastime was exploring the back roads of Michigan's beautiful North Country. On a gray and foggy weekend in October 1963, Tasker was driving along M123 early on a Saturday morning. He was a few miles north of Paradise, hugging the shoreline of Whitefish Bay. While sipping coffee from his thermos, from the corner of his eye he spotted a place where the grass along the road grew in a telltale pattern. The growth suggested there had once been a road here. Tasker slowed his military surplus Jeep, turned around, and returned to the overgrown two-track leading into a thick stand of pines. No one had been down this road in a long time. His heart started beating fast with the excitement of discovery. The first quarter mile, the path was nearly impassable as long intertwined branches of the trees brushed across and over his vehicle. Then the two-track opened and became smoother. Tasker drove another half mile, noticing that the fog was getting thicker. The mid-morning sun was just a hazy circle in the sky. He switched on his headlights, fearful that he might suddenly find himself driving straight into the cold waters of Whitefish Bay. Suddenly, through the haze on both sides, Tasker detected shapes. Buildings. The two-track had become a wide street. He shut off his engine and stepped from the vehicle. He was in the middle of a town. Tasker grabbed his county plat map and tried to pinpoint his position. After a few quick calculations, his finger traced to a point on the map where absolutely nothing appeared. He shook his head and looked around. "Hello," he said, stepping from his Jeep, his voice echoing off the buildings. There were several storefronts, a dozen or more houses, neatly lining the street. The dilapidated state of many of the buildings suggested years of neglect. Tasker climbed the rickety steps of a store that bore the name Sancho Dry Goods. He cupped his hands over his eyes and peered inside. The shelves were empty, but a very old cash register still stood near the front. Next to it, a broom rested, as if someone had swept the floor that very morning. The rest of the buildings were equally deserted. Many of the homes still had furniture inside, but little else. As he emerged near the far end of the street, Tasker spotted a small brick building. Over the door, a stone block was engraved: U.S. Post Office, Sheldrake, Michigan. Tasker turned to go back to his Jeep, but the fog had thickened so much he could not see it. Stumbling blindly, he navigated from memory until the familiar shape of his vehicle swam from the fog. He climbed inside and returned to his county plat map. He searched and searched, but there was nothing on the highly detailed map to indicate a town named Sheldrake. Suddenly, he jumped. His peripheral vision picked up a shape moving in the fog near his door, then another on the passenger side. He strained his eyes, peering through the drizzle on the windshield. There was movement, but just what he could not tell. Tasker's heart was pounding. He reached for the ignition key on the dashboard. He was ready to get out of Sheldrake fast. But the key was gone. More dark shapes moved around outside his vehicle. Tasker frantically ran his hands along the floorboards of the Jeep, searching for the key. It wasn't there. He sat up straight, considering the canvas top of the Jeep, which would offer no protection at all. Dark shapes darted back and forth outside. His eyes were wide as saucers as his mind raced with what to do next. Tasker took a deep breath and tried to calm himself. Maybe these were just hikers or hunters or something. Maybe he just dropped his key right outside the door. His hand shaking, Tasker reached for the headlight switch and pulled. Three days later, a state trooper traveling along M123 noticed a small green Jeep on the shoulder of the road. A county plat map was open on the passenger seat. A half-filled thermos of cold coffee lay on the floor. The key was in the ignition. C.J. Tasker was never seen again. The Haunting of Northwest Michigan.